If you've ever stepped into something that already had momentum, a role, a path, a business, and quietly wondered, where do I fit inside all of this? This episode is going to hit you in a way you don't expect. Because not everyone starts from scratch. Sometimes you grow into something over time, and somewhere along the way, it becomes yours. Sabrina Parsons didn't build a company, she grew one within one, and over time stepped into leading it. And what she learned about confidence, identity, and leadership might be exactly what you need to hear right now. Stay with me.
I've thought about this a lot. I think that the thing that I go back to all the time is that I'm most stuck when I'm afraid of failure. And so to not be afraid of it, right? And I think especially as women, we are afraid of failure. We're afraid of judgment. We're always apologizing. And so I would challenge listeners, especially all the working women out there, to stop apologizing and be okay with some things aren't going to go the way you want them.
Everyone has a sock drawer where we hide the stuff we don't want to face. Today, we're opening yours. I'm Lisa Begley, and this is the Sock Drawer Podcast. If your life feels messy, stuck, or outgrown, good. That's where we begin.
Hey there, Sock Drawer listeners. Welcome back to the Sock Drawer Podcast, where we talk about moments in life where something no longer fits and the courage it takes to decide what comes next. And today, we're talking about something that doesn't get enough attention. What it really looks like to grow into leadership over time, not all at once, not from scratch, but from within something that already exists. I'm joined today by Sabrina Parsons, CEO of Palo Alto Software and LivePlan. She joined the company early in her career and over time grew into the CEO role, leading a company that supports entrepreneurs all over the world. But let me just say this conversation isn't just about business. It's about identity, ownership, and what it takes to fully step into something that just doesn't happen overnight. Sabrina, welcome to the Sock Drawer family. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here with you guys.
I'm excited to dive in. So I would love to start back at the beginning. If you would, take us back. What did life look like for you before all of this started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the place I'll take everybody is when I made a decision to really embrace entrepreneurship, and that startups, small businesses, entrepreneurship, that side of the business world was going to be where I wanted to live. And that goes back to summer before my senior year at Princeton. I graduated from Princeton University in 1996. The summer before that, I had an internship in Quest Communications in Denver, Colorado. At that time, summer of 95, Quest had now I don't think it even exists in the same way because all the telcos are all very different. But at that point, Quest was just starting to explode. So it had gone from 100 employees to 300 employees the 2 months before I got there. And it was in a building in downtown Denver on the 17th floor. And, it was my first job where I had to dress with like business clothes every day, get in the elevator in this, high-rise building with all these other people and go up to the 17th floor.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible internship.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What made it terrible? What made it so terrible?
So they were growing too fast, and it was just this kind of chaotic moment. And I don't know who posted internships and decided like this, we should do this, but no one was really ready to deal with it.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do with me. And I spent all summer sitting in a cubicle trying to look busy.
Oh my gosh.
Awful. Trying to find things to do, and then having people who were used to more of the corporate world who were like, stop asking, just go sit down and be happy. Like they're paying you. Just sit there. And so it was just this like, I would tell, they wanted me. I was like, well, I'll do market research for you guys. They're like, yeah, sure. But, it's summer of 95. The internet doesn't really exist. So
Yeah.
I would walk to the Denver library. I would try to do some research. I would like sit on a picnic bench and eat my lunch in the sunshine. And I mean, I just really was passing the time.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm getting in the elevator every day with all these people who are in this big high rise, 36-story building. And every day they get on the elevator, and every day there's just this collective like, just from everybody. And Wednesdays would come and everybody would be like, oh, we made it to Wednesday.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I chuckle, but Lord, I don't think this has gone away. There are so many people out there that still have that same experience, unfortunately. But anyway, I didn't go ahead.
No, so I'm sitting there and I had this very this moment of clarity, like towards the end of my internship where I just said, I never want to be one of these people. Like, this is not for me. This is like, I can't do this. I can't be in, I'm looking at one more year before I graduate and it's supposed to be exciting and all these opportunities. And it just like that moment, because being at Princeton, I was coming back in September and there's all these career fairs and you were going to like, are you going to go with McKinsey or Goldman Sachs or Bain Consulting? And there's just these pathways everybody took. And that was what I was thinking I was going to do. And sitting there in that elevator, I just sort of had this moment of like, no, I can't do this. I can't, the corporate world's not for me. I can't play this game. I can't be in a job where I'm like trying to make it through the week. Like I just, and that like I talk about it with my kids, and sometimes here, I live in Eugene, Oregon, where University of Oregon is. I talk to students and I always tell them about my elevator moment. That it was this moment of just clarity of like, I need to do something else. Yeah. And my dad had always been an entrepreneur, and, it had meant some struggles from a kind of money perspective growing up, but that had always been, he'd started companies and he was very staunchly a serial entrepreneur. And that moment, I just knew I'm going to do that. Like, that's the life for me. And that's really what kicked off my journey. I graduated in summer of 96 and I moved back to the Bay Area where I was from. And those of us old people might remember summer of 96 is when the dot-coms exploded. It was when Yahoo was created. It was pre-Google. I know that's hard for people to believe. But it was Netscape Navigator, Site at Home, all these names that like those of us old people remember. And most of those companies aren't even alive anymore. And I just jumped into the whole dot-com world and never looked back.
So good. Yeah, so good. And that's such a powerful story. And like I said, I feel for people who are experiencing that. And I hope your story resonates with them to make maybe not the same decision, but a decision that doesn't leave them in their life doing that. Okay. So what was next then? So did you join the company you're CEO of now, or what was the path?
So Palo Alto Software was started by my dad in Palo Alto, California, where I grew up. And when I went back to the Bay Area, he actually was already in Oregon. He had moved the business up to Eugene. Okay. My parents had lived here when my dad did a master's in journalism in the 70s. So they had already moved up here. I was in the Bay Area, and my dad would occasionally sort of, when are you going to come work with me? And I'd love for you to work with me. And I kind of always poo-pooed it and like, how that business planning seems so boring. And I was in the whole dot-com thing. I moved to the Bay Area with then my boyfriend, now my husband of, 25 years. But he and I just jumped into the whole dot-com game, and we ended up a couple years later both joining a company called ePinions.com. And ePinions was one of those crazy Silicon Valley startups. We got funded by Benchmark Capital, $12 million on 12 PowerPoint slides.
Wow.
No one over 25. I mean, I remember I used to talk to my dad about the crazy stuff happening in the business, and my dad would say, "Oh my God, I feel like you guys need some adults." He was
Smart thinking.
wrong, right? And that was the beginnings of my understanding of the power of planning and strategy and what happens if you don't have that.
Yeah.
And like actually building a business correctly. Fast forward a little bit, my husband and I got married and decided to move to London because he's a dual UK US citizen.
Cool.
And we were kind of tired of the Silicon Valley craziness.
Which was a lot of craziness then.
It was. And it was just all this like, you will work 100 hours a week. You will never leave your desk. Everything is at the, it was
my gosh.
Back to people who might remember The Nudist on the Late Shift, which was Poe Bronson's book about like working in a .com, and it was crazy.
Crazy time.
And not healthy and not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we decided we were going to move to London, do consulting there, just kind of figure it out. We were,
amazing.
28 and didn't have
kids yet.
Nope, no kids yet.
Nice.
So we went over there and we started doing some consulting. And what we ended up doing is working with my dad and opening a UK business that distributed Palo Alto software.
Okay.
And he had wanted to move into the EU and he had been talking to some potential distributors, and we started talking and he said, well, if you guys want to do it and take the same deal I'm already working on, maybe this is a way for you guys to see if you want to work with me. And so we did it. We opened the UK arm. We localized the software. We got it into retail stores. It was back when it was Windows box software. And 2 years later, the business was growing. And my dad said, I need to hire some higher level people. This is your guys' chance. If you want to come back to the US, I'd love for you guys to come back and, do that with me. If you don't, that's fine. You can keep running the UK business. We wholly owned it and had an agreement with the US business. But we were both, it was 2 years later, we were 30. We were definitely thinking about kids. Eugene, Oregon's a beautiful place that I never thought I would live in because there aren't a lot of tech jobs. And so the pieces all came together. We decided to come back. We folded in our business into Palo Alto Softwares. And that was in 2003. By 2006, I was running marketing. My husband was running product. My dad was still the CEO. And in 2006, I talked to my dad and I said, I don't want you to feel like I'm giving you an ultimatum, but I just want you to know that Noah, who's my husband, that we really love, being in the entrepreneurial game. If this is, if you're thinking at some point that you're going to step down as CEO, that might be interesting. Otherwise, in the next couple of years, we're probably going to go do our own thing. And it's not it's not because we don't like it here. It's not we just feel like we want something that's ours. And we have all these ideas.
Yeah.
And,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so he's actually, it wasn't a fight or anything. He's like, okay, I get it. I understand. I'm not ready to step down. I can't make any promises of when I am. And I said, that's fine. I want to give you a long timeline, but in the next couple of years, that's probably what we're going to do. A year later, he called me into his office. So this was April of 2007. And he said, so if you were CEO, what would you do? And I had a whole list because we would talk about it.
You were ready.
I was ready because my husband and I would talk about it all the time. And I was like, oh, well, we do this and this and this and this, and this is what we're thinking. And here's the missed opportunities we think are on the table. And after maybe an hour of discussion, he said, okay, great, because you're going to be CEO tomorrow.
Okay.
No succession strategy, no long discussions.
Wow.
I'm ready. And I also see the writing on the wall that Windows
Mhm.
software is not where it's at.
Yeah.
You guys are in this world. It's not my world anymore, and it's time. And
Yeah.
so I became CEO and my husband became COO. And the business was probably about 30 employees. And since then, we transitioned from Windows to SaaS. We built LivePlan. So that's really the legacy from me and my husband running the business.
Yeah.
And we built the business up to about 70 employees.
Okay. Sabrina, before we go any further, I want to ask this because I'm curious, and I'm hoping if I'm curious, I'm not the only one that would be asking this question. So can you give a layman's term explanation on Windows versus SaaS?
Yep. And it depends on how old you are, because some of you will be like, absolutely. So Windows software is basically what we all remember when we'd go to Office Depot and there was all those boxes of software, right?
Yeah.
There was QuickBooks and Microsoft Windows and Word and Excel. And inside was, early on, it was floppy disks. We remember those.
Yeah.
When we were involved in running the business, it was CD-ROMs, right? And you would get your CD-ROM and you would install the software. And it was back in the days when, for the most part, Windows machines were what everybody used in business. So we actually eventually had a Mac version, but I always say Windows software because that was 90% of our business, because 90% of the business computers were all Windows.
Yeah.
It was like academics and schools that use Macs.
Right.
Or, people at home, maybe sometimes. So Windows software was that, software that you installed on your computer, you bought it and owned it.
Yeah.
Versus, of course, what we're all now familiar with. And, even my oldest, who's now 22, has never, I think, seen a computer that has a CD-ROM drive in it.
Yeah. Yep. They're non-existent.
Yep. So I think my now 16-year-old found a box of blank CD-ROMs in my office here a few years ago, and he brought it out. And he was like, "What is this? What are these things? Are they like weird frisbees? Like, what is this?"
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that's the Windows software, right? When we would buy software for $200 and you owned it. And along the way, you would have to get maybe the next version. And until the internet was, more consistent, the next version you'd buy in a store.
Right.
Obviously, by the time I was involved in here, we're talking, it was 2002, 2003, 2004. So at that point, you could download Windows software from the internet. We would have upgrades that you could buy, but you would buy an upgrade and you would own the software.
Yeah.
And in 07, it just was very clear that that was not the future. Salesforce was just starting to take off as like the first SaaS business that was very well-known and very successful. And we just knew that we had to transition and we had to move to software as a service and delivering a platform that was fully online and really embrace, and it was early because there was a few other choices we could have gone with, but we really embraced this and it was the right decision.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between Windows versus software as a service, and different business models too, because we went from selling a one-time purchase for $199.
Yeah.
Now you're selling a subscription, and now we have various tiers, but in the beginning we had one tier at $19.99.
Yeah.
So it was a scary transition to stop selling something that you got $200 for.
Yeah.
And now we're selling something that we get $20 for, and we don't know how long people are going to stay. And we're not getting the $200 of cash. We're getting 20, and it's going to take 5 months to get that, to get to 100, like just the $100.
Even half. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a scary transition, and it was definitely sort of the big first hurdle when I became CEO.
And so when you stepped into that role, did you feel pressure stepping into that role in any way?
A little bit. I mean, I was much younger, so I was excited and very confident that we knew that there was a path.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little anxious, but also excited to prove to my dad that like we really did want to run something. We did want to take the risk.
Yeah.
My dad did say when he transitioned the business over, your mom and I now feel really good about what we've done for our retirement. So even if you mess this up, we're fine.
Thanks,
Probably not
Dad.
fine, but we're fine. So, you know, in a way that was helpful to
Yeah.
know that like he was really giving me that kind of this is go. He's
Permission. Yeah,
still,
like just
yeah,
release. Yeah.
he remains chairman of the board, and you know, we own the business together. So it's not like he's completely not involved at all. At
Yeah.
this point, he and I touch base maybe once a month, and it's
Yeah.
more like, you know, it's a very different thing. But yeah, I mean, there was some pressure. It was a little nerve wracking, but we did a lot of planning to really help us in that business model transition.
Gotcha.
So how did we, you know, we arranged it to reduce the risk in, you know, we started selling less of the windows and pushing more people on our website to SaaS, but it wasn't, we didn't cut everything off. So we definitely planned for the business model switch.
So good. Okay. So what was something when you were going through all of this, what was something about the leadership piece of it that you think people don't talk about enough, like that the people should be more aware of?
Oh, gosh, yeah, I would think that the biggest thing, and I think throughout my whole career as a leader, I always go back to, because people always say, what was the hardest? What did you not realize? You
Yeah.
know, what were the biggest challenges? And I think to this day, it remains people and people management and the culture you build,
Yeah.
because the strategy, the business side of it, you can mitigate the risks. There's ways to do that. You're not going to guess right every time, but if you have done your planning, if you've done things correctly, you have the time and the space to make corrections.
Yeah.
You know, if you do A/B tests, there are models and systems that you can use to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
Managing people, the people are your most important asset.
Yes.
They are the ones that make and break a business. Retention is so important for even just the bottom line, but also the knowledge that people have and retain. So I think in the transition, one of the things that I didn't understand at first was that we were transitioning not just this new business model and technology, it was a whole different kind of business. And there were people that were employed who weren't either on board or just didn't have the right skill set. Some of it was obvious. We knew we had to change the engineering teams because you're moving from Windows development to now you're developing SaaS platforms. So that one was a little bit easier and sort of right in your face. But it turned out we actually ended up needing to really hire a new marketing team because the team of people we had were very rooted in selling box software, channel sales, just this old school way of doing things.
Yeah.
And a lot of them couldn't and didn't want to transition. And so I would say in doing something like this, we did not take the time to really understand like the team changes we were going to have to make. We kind of thought, oh, we're jumping in, we get it, everybody else will jump with us.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. And so there was some learnings there of understanding. And also that my husband and I run the business in a very different way than my dad. And so transitioning and having people who really bought into us and our vision and our strategy and wanted to be on that journey with us.
That makes such good sense. And obviously, of course, you would have to do that. How do you recognize that? Like, there's some, like you said, it's going to be perfectly obvious. Like, and they're going to be the ones to take themselves out of the mix, right? Because they don't want to do that. But the ones that feel like I really do, I want to do this, or I think about this, or, I'm on board, but deep down they're really not. How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think some of it came from, some of it was just some time. We just had to give time for some of those people who said they were on board, but not really on board, to really
Yeah.
discover, like, oh, that's not what we want. So one
Yeah.
of the things that we did, and we do to this day, is we were very transparent with all the KPIs. So all those key performance indicators, which are very different in software as a service.
Yeah.
Instead of just selling a product, and there's metrics for selling a product, you're selling a service, and it's all about, how many new customers you get, what is your churn, what is your average revenue per account. So all these metrics are very different. So we became very transparent with the metrics, where they were, where we needed them to be. From that, then every team had metrics. And that really helped, because there got to be a point where some people either pushed back and said, I don't believe those metrics.
Yeah.
And then we had some hard conversations, and people were like, you know what, maybe this isn't the place for me.
Yeah.
Or we had places where, because of the metrics, because of laying out the strategy and being transparent, people, weren't being successful. And working with them to say, there's things you can do and learn, but maybe this isn't going to work out. And so there was some of that for a couple of years, and a recognition of having to work with people to see if they could meet us where we needed them to be. And if not, then helping them transition out.
Yeah. So I really appreciate hearing that, because that's not always the case, especially in the scenario where a new CEO is coming on board and taking over, and there's a whole different vision. And, I've personally experienced that. And I know many, many people have, where it's just like, nope, we're going to take this chunk of people. So, what would you say to someone if someone feels, kind of stuck right now, they're in leadership and they're maybe going through what you've been through? If they feel stuck right now, where's a good place for them to begin in the transition?
Yeah, you know what I think is a really good place to begin, and we should have done it earlier, is to really get clear about the mission and the culture you want to have the company. And
how do you do that? Like, give me some insight, Sabrina.
and
that's a hard thing to figure out. I feel like when you're not in it yet, you think what you want, but how do you get there?
So starting with a mission, right? What is it that you're trying to do with your business? What is the mission? Being very clear about that. It may take some brainstorming and workshopping. So for us, we came to the conclusion that the mission actually was very similar to what it had been when my dad ran it. But for us, we wanted to put people front and center. So our mission was to help people succeed in business. And we remain a very mission-focused company. We want everything that we do to be something that we can say that helps people succeed in business. And so at the end of the day, it all comes back to that. And then beyond, once you have your mission, to be very clear about the culture that you want and that you have. And you have to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. You see a lot of companies with their culture decks, and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So really thinking through, and in the first 5 or 6 years, as we transitioned from Windows to SaaS and we hired new people, we had a pattern of some people that we hired worked out great and some people did not. In both cases, they had perfect resumes, they had experience, things on paper. Both of these kinds of people should have worked. Some people would come in and do brilliantly and just fit and work really well with leadership and just really help us get to the next step. And then other people would just falter and it just wasn't a good fit. And it was just like, they were not happy. We were not happy. And it happened more times than we wanted to as we hired people in, maybe 5 or 6 times over the course of a year and a half. So we really stepped back and said, why? What is not working? And that's where we started to say, okay, what kind of a business are we running? And we put together the actual culture. So we're transparent. One of the big things we say is we want people to have the autonomy to be awesome. That's one of our tenets of our culture. And that comes from recognizing that the people who were thriving versus the people who were not, people who didn't want to be micromanaged, people who were risk takers and who had their own vision and wanted a lot of autonomy to run with strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And we really looked at it. We said, okay, this is the people who aren't working out. Most of them came from bigger corporate culture where they needed a lot of guardrails and policies and structure. And that just wasn't who we were. We were very entrepreneurial, even though it was an established company. It was very much our roots that Noah and I had from .com, and things move very quickly and you learn as you go and you take risks and you ask for forgiveness and not permission because you know, at the end of the day, you want to do a good job and you want to excel. And so we had to be very clear about that culture. And as we brought in new people, make sure that they understood that. Because we also noticed that the people who weren't working out, we kept hearing the same thing over and over again. And they would say, there's not enough strategy here. We don't know what we're doing. And it was like, well, but you have the strategy and you have, you know, we use a whole, you know, process of OKRs where you have your objective and your key result. I mean, we had a lot of, but we didn't spell things out. We let people in their jobs. You know, we figure we're going to hire smart people. We're going to tell you what we want in terms of objectives and key results, and you figure out how to get them. And the people who weren't successful, that was really hard for them. They wanted the manual.
Guidance. Step by step.
And that's, you know, and some companies do that. And I have friends who've risen very far in large Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. They love that and they're all about that. And so that was really the point at which we were able to articulate our culture and really embrace it and just say, if you're going to be successful at our company, this is the kind of person you have to be. It's not just your experience and your skills and what you have on paper.
Exactly. I love that so much. And that is so true. It's exactly what I was going to say. All of that you just said, you don't see in a resume. You don't see it. And just to be able to have the autonomy and to create your own strategy where here's the goal, here's your job, from here to here is all you know, love that. And there's definitely a place for people who need, like you said, guardrails, structure, step by step. And that definitely is a place. I think where the difficulty, what I've noticed comes in is when the person doesn't recognize, they don't know themselves quite yet. They haven't quite gotten there to understand. They can't be honest, like, oh yeah, I'm that person. And they get in it and it's chaos, you know, for them. So, okay. Thank you for all of that. Such great advice and guidance. Would you tell me a little bit about Palo Alto? Can you give me some insight about both businesses, if you will?
Yeah. So LivePlan is our product and really kind of the brand name that we put out there. What we build it's a platform because it has lots of tools in it that helps whether you're in idea stage or you're running a business, but it helps people put together a business plan, a strategy, forecast, and then it helps them manage to that forecast so that they can really embrace their own KPIs. Our target audience is usually either small businesses that are really, the founder is the expert. They are not an MBA. They are not an accountant. In fact, most of the time they hate that side of it. They know they need to embrace it to be better business owners. So it's a lot of what our software does is help not just build a plan and a forecast, but teach people how and why. And then at the end of the process, people actually understand more about their business. And then we help them keep on track So yeah, I mean, one of the beauties of LivePlan is I feel like even though we're an established company, I've been running this business for almost 20 years now. I feel like we're in sort of the startup world every day, which is fun
Yeah.
and exciting because that's who we serve. But yeah, that's what we're all about, is helping people really succeed, particularly people who can't afford CFOs or fancy consultants and don't have the MBA and the accounting degree.
Okay. So is it fair to say it's a platform that somebody, mostly small business, that's who it's for. Small business owners, are they startups? Are they people just getting started, or are they more like they've been, or both? They've had a business for many years and they're struggling.
It's usually startups who are looking for funding. So we have had over 1 million entrepreneurs use the software, and over the 20 years, we've had businesses get over $1 billion of funding, cumulative, right?
Wow.
Not $1 billion to one business, but
Right.
cumulative. So usually there's some sort of what we call a business plan event. In a startup, it usually is funding. You need to get funding, maybe from an investor, maybe from an SBA loan, but you have a funding need. And so you need to get a business plan. You need to get a forecast. You need to put together your strategy and your market research. Because you have to go pitch someone, whether it's a banker or investor or your rich uncle, but you have a funding need, or you're a small business that's already in existence and you have an event that's driving you to say, I need planning. So you want to open another location. Again, funding. You
Scaling.
need potentially, you need to scale it. You need funding.
Okay.
A lot of times it's people who come to us and they've grown their business and they're kind of feeling like they're at the limit of the business knowledge. And so they're coming up to us and saying, I got to figure this out. I've got to somehow make more revenue, because if I don't hire a manager and have the ability to take some days off, my partner's going to leave me. My spouse has given me an ultimatum and I need to figure things out. So there's a lot of times these existing businesses that have these events. Either I'm opening a new location, I'm bringing in a partner, I'm buying another business. Or it's, I need to figure out how to grow my margins because I need to hire someone I can trust so I can take time off, because, a lot of small business owners work these businesses 7 days a week and they never take any time off. So whether you're at the idea stage or an existing business, you usually come to us driven by an event, usually funding or growth.
Okay, funding or growth. So Sabrina, now do they have a person that they're assigned to, that they talk to? Yeah, they have the platform, or does the platform walk them through everything? Or does LivePlan factor into that?
So LivePlan, you can sign up for it. We've got 2 tiers, $20 a month or $40 a month, depending on the features you want. The platform is self-serve. It walks you through everything, but we also have additional services. So you can sign up and you can have one-on-one discussions. We also have consultants that we can pair you with. So it's everything from do it yourself to help me do it to do it for me.
I really love this and I love your story. And I know a lot of people out there are in this place and could use a little bit of guidance and help at this stage of their business, no matter where they are. So I even have somebody in my head that I know is in the process of trying to find an investor. So I'm going to pass you along to her. We'll have all of this in the show notes for sure. Sabrina, what else before we jump into our drawer dash and tiny dare? Is there anything you'd like our listeners to be aware of?
I think one of the things that I'm most proud of over these last 20 years running the business is the focus on our business being mission-based and the values we bring to the business. We want to run a business where people are better off after they purchase. So if you're not, we're going to give you your money back. We're trying to make a profit. We're trying to be a very successful business, but in a fair way where we always say, did we help you succeed in business? And if you were my friend, my neighbor, would I recommend that you buy this or would I not? And if I wouldn't, why? And let's change that. So I would say that I feel like and we have great retention. We have people who've been with us for 20 years. And I think one of those things is the ability for people to say, I believe in the mission and I believe in the values.
Yeah.
And I think that ranks these days above, do you have a keg in the kitchen or, foosball and arcade games in the basement? I think people are looking for something else these days.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so we will have all of this information and how you can get in contact with and reach out to get one of the plans at LivePlan or reach out for help at Palo Alto. So we jumped into the moment where we're in the 60-second drawer dash. Quick answers. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Oh, definitely early bird. I am up every day by about 4:45 in the morning.
Wow, that's impressive. I think 6 a.m. is impressive. Okay. Risk taker or calculated?
Definitely risk taker.
I could have guessed that after our conversation. One habit that keeps you grounded?
Working out every day. There's been time in my life where I haven't, and it's one of the reasons I get up so early. It's become such a great part of my mental health as well as my physical health, is to find that time that's just mine, that I feel like I can do my workout, go work out with my group of people at the gym, and it's just my time. And it's mental health and physical health for me.
So good. What is a decision that changed everything for you?
I think the decision that I was not going to be perfect. I have, being a very sort of positive, risk-taking person. I'm also hard on myself, and I strive for things must be perfect and I must do everything. And it was that realization, running a business, being a working mom, that it was okay. Things were not going to be perfect. And so really picking my battles, because I'm not going to be perfect. It's okay if the bed isn't made. It is a lot better to not be that flustered and be a little bit calmer and, spend an extra 10 minutes with one of my kids, having a cup of coffee while they eat breakfast. And so letting things go and learning to be okay with that.
So we always ask our guests every episode to please leave our listeners with something we call a tiny dare. So what would a small action that somebody listening could take today if they're feeling stuck maybe or unsure of their next step? What could move them forward?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. I think that the thing that I go back to all the time is that I'm most stuck when I'm afraid of failure. And so to not be afraid of it, right? And I think especially as women, we are afraid of failure. We're afraid of judgment. We're always apologizing. And so I would challenge listeners, especially all the working women out there, to stop apologizing and be okay with some things aren't going to go the way you want them. And that's okay. And just learn from it and then move on. And don't beat yourself up. Don't apologize and don't beat yourself up.
Don't apologize. If we could just even leave it at that. That is such a powerful statement. Sabrina, thank you so much. This was such a thoughtful and honest conversation, but also super powerful for leaders and, not just women, anybody out there getting ready to step into a CEO role or, what does that look like and how do you make that transition? So important. And I really appreciate your honesty with all of it. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your story and your perspective with us for sure. I know a lot of listeners this will be powerful for them. And just because, not everyone starts from zero, sometimes you grow into something and the real work becomes figuring out who you are inside of that. And it sounds like you've accomplished that for sure. Listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody. That's exactly how we pay it forward. Somebody who may need it, may be wondering about this in this similar position. And make sure you subscribe to the Software Podcast on YouTube so you can hear more of these conversations as we go along. And if you're in a season, where you're trying to figure things out, reach out to Palo Alto. Go ahead and, subscribe, get a plan at LivePlan. Figure it out, right? Get help you need. It's okay to ask for it. And as always, you guys take one brave step, even if it doesn't feel perfect. Just decide to do it and make it happen. We'll see you next time on the Software Podcast. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Every week we come here and open the drawer. You already know what's inside. You always have. And if this conversation challenged you in a good way, and you think it will help challenge someone else who needs it, send it to them, because that's how we pay it forward together. Subscribe and follow so you never miss what's coming next. And find us at thesoftwarepodcast.com.